Have you heard of Christian Ray Flores? Many of us remember him from his hit song, Our Generation, that captivated hearts across the globe. When I reached out to Christian and his team, it took a couple of months to schedule, but it was well worth the wait. I felt like I was catching up with an old friend. As an entrepreneur, businessman, man of faith, and now the author of A Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, a love letter from an immigrant, Christian brings a wealth of experience and insight. His journey from Moscow to embracing his Spanish and Russian heritage, all the while being a dedicated family man, is fascinating. Today, we explore his new adventures as a motivational speaker, podcast host, and evangelist. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with someone who's not just a guest, but a brother in Christ. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is the Interludes Podcast. The Interludes Podcast,
a Pure Lighthouse production.
This episode is brought to you by our brand new website, purelighthousemedia.com, home to the ebook, A DJ Saved My Life, where the ABCs of podcasting and the personal memoir come together perfectly. If you want to start your podcast, schedule time with me, or buy merch, which includes the ebook, please visit our fully remodeled website today.
And now, all the way from the south side of Chicago, give it up for your host, Val the Voice Johnson.
Hey everyone, this is Val the Voice Johnson, and welcome to another edition of the Interludes Podcast. I am always excited when I bring on talented and very brilliantly blessed people. The person I'm getting ready to introduce to you guys on today. Good gracious, he is an author, he is a musician, he is an entrepreneur, and the author of recently the book that I just purchased called Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. I feel like this book is important today. If no other days, it's important today. And of course, we're excited to have Christian Ray Flores. Welcome. How are you, Christian?
I am very well, Val. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. There's so many questions that's floating around in my brain, but then of course I think about all of the things that you have done. I want you to kind of introduce yourself to my audience, your background. When I say that, when a person, there was a song back in the 90s called Been Around the World and I. When
Yes.
I read, you remember that song?
Lisa
Stansfield. Lisa Stansfield.
Yeah.
Yes. That's one of my.
Yes, that's a good song.
That's one of my favorite songs. So when I read your background, I was thinking, oh my goodness, that is going to be such a wonderful situation. And I was like, I'd love to ask these questions and to find out more about you. But here's the thing. You've had such a quite an extraordinary journey from Moscow. We're talking from Russia all the way to here. And here's the thing. How have all of these diverse cultures that you've been a part of has influenced your music and ministry?
Good question. So between Moscow and here, there was Chile and Germany, then Africa, then back to Moscow, then Ukraine, and then to the United States. So this is my 6th country and my 4th continent. And a whole lot of stuff happened sort of in those places. A lot of drama. Okay, so the question was music and ministry. I would say, well, first of all, music, right? Because I was brought up completely atheist. Both my parents were Marxists, right? So I didn't meet anyone who didn't have a relationship or meet anyone or talk to anyone who believes in the divine until I was in my probably, early 20s.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a very different climate, right? Musically, it was a huge blessing to be able to, have this Latin influence early on. Of course, we lived in Chile. I sang sort of natural. I had a natural tone, right? So that was sort of my only thing that I didn't have to learn was my tone.
Okay.
Even vocal, I think vocal technique I did have to learn later. That I just didn't have it. I had a tone, but didn't have the technique. But anyway, I'm just going into like details now. But when I was growing up in Africa, we had this very strange. We had combination because I was part of a Latin choir, like a kids that did all kinds of folk music from Latin America. So it's Brazil and Colombia and Argentina and Chile, things like that.
Wow.
And then at the same time, we were living in Africa, so we're exposed to these syncopated beats and African chants and it's just beautiful dancing and stuff like that. And then
Mm.
when we went back to Russia when I was a teenager, my parents got divorced, so I had to go. I went with my mom. Then there was this
Mhm.
whole European influence, right? Dance music, things like that. And I was in a jazz studio for a while, so that's where I fell in love with Ray Charles and uh, you know Al Jarreau and people like that, and George Duke, people like that,
Oh, wow.
Chaka Khan, people like that, right? So that was sort of my exposure to jazz and soul and R&B. So I basically sort of landed on R&B pop as my style of choice, right? And then when I sort of went into sort of the professional space musically,
Right.
all of
Mhm.
those very, very eclectic things sort of came together, and that's what made it unique, I guess.
Yeah. And I was on your IG and I saw a picture of you and Al Jarreau. You got a chance to meet one of your
Yeah,
heroes. How
yeah, a
was
few of
that?
them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
met Al Jarreau after a show. We hang out together in an after party, and it was
Mhm.
just surreal. George Duke was an actual friend of mine. We actually did a joint project in LA,
Wow.
and I got to be literally share the stage with Shaka Khan at one point, and I was she was performing and I was performing after her, and she loved it so much she actually invited me over to her table and we like had champagne and talked for a long time. It's one of those things you go, is this really happening? Is this really happening to me? So yeah, so I got to
Yeah.
meet quite a few of my heroes. Yeah.
Of all of the heroes that you've met,
Yeah,
who was the one that stood out the most?
I think for me I think George Duke,
Yeah.
because he was just not just a musician or a producer, but he sort of was an architect of style, right?
Yeah.
So, and he
Mhm.
worked with people like Anita Baker and so many other people, all the way to Michael Jackson. He was a producer on Off the Wall, and
Mm.
I got to sort of ask him all these questions about the patterns that he saw of successful artists, what they had in common, Okay, and I was like, okay, tell me the truth. Who was like a real problem to work with? So he shared
Everybody
those.
wants to know that.
Yeah, yeah. So he shared those secrets with me, and we traveled together. We did a presentation of an album in Moscow, so we traveled together. So it was a lot of fun. I got to spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, and I always find this fascinating that a lot of R&B artists, especially African American artists, they are celebrated in other parts of the world when sometimes we're not celebrated at home. Did
Yes,
you ever
yes.
feel that way
Well,
about?
especially jazz.
Mhm.
Jazz
Yeah.
is
Why?
massively more popular in Europe than it is in the U.S., which is it is perplexing. Actually,
Weird.
I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know what the question.
Mhm.
I don't know why that is, but they are massive stars in so many places on Earth, and in the U.S. they're just sort of okay, Al Jarreau, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay, Al Jarreau. This is Al Jarreau, like. So yeah, so yeah, but I was sort of my musical. I was like the maturation of my musical tastes was definitely jazz and R&B for sure. So it shaped me
Yeah.
forever, So still
So
my
I'm assuming
preference.
that's what led to, and we're going back some years,
Yeah,
your big single that you had out. It was called Our Generation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
string.
How did that single come together, and how did you get started in your music career with that song?
Well, actually, I didn't get started with that song. I had a bunch of hits before that.
Okay.
And basically, so I started in the early 90s, and it was honestly the chances of me succeeding were very low, because
Hmm.
I was this R&B, pop, hip hop kind of guy
Mm-hmm.
who was introducing this kind of music into a space that never had R&B, pop, and hip hop kind of stuff in the charts, right? It was sort of
Mm-hmm.
more underground music, right? That, clubs, certain very, like, it was basically underground. So I made it mainstream in a significant way by mixing, the music, making it sort of more palpable to the post-Soviet ear, I guess, because
Okay.
the Soviet space is like 15 different countries that broke. Those used to be the Soviet Union, but they stayed in the same cultural, almost like ecosystem. The same stations, TV stations, radio stations, etc.
Right.
So when I started doing that music, it was very much R&B, very much
Oh.
R&B. And then a lot of people were very skeptical of it, going, yeah, I don't think the Russians will get that, and I can give you even an example of the barrier. So
Okay.
the barrier, for example, if you go on stage, most places in America, and you would tell the crowd to clap on the second beat, like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go on the stage in Eastern Europe, you'll do this, and people clap on the first.
Oh, different.
That's a cultural peculiarity. So they prefer sort of the on the beat clapping, right? And then if you go to some of the smaller countries that are much more, I would say, ethnic, right? For lack
There
of
you
a
go.
better word, like Armenia, Georgia, places like that, Azerbaijan.
Mhm.
So you might not even know where they are, but they appreciate syncopated music. So I had a massive following, like in places like Kazakhstan, right?
Wow.
Yeah, the land of Borat, which is like, it's not actually, what they show in Borat is nothing, has nothing to do with Kazakhstan. But anyway, but but we did sports arenas in Kazakhstan, in places like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, but my point is, there's a musical taste and a musical aesthetic that is local. And then when I came on, um, most people were skeptical that it would actually gain traction, but it did. And I think it was because of the showmanship. We had great choreography, great dancing.
Yeah.
It was just great music. And then after a string of hits, we had sort of that Our Generation one, which became this massive, massive hit, like a mega hit. And it was
Yeah.
just, it sort of captured the pulse of a generation. It was very bold, etc. So yeah, that's the backstory.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of get the backstory of that because it is something that made you very popular at the time. And I feel like when you start off, and I hear this from other musicians that have had like massive hits and stuff, it's then that transition of what do you do, what's next if you decide not to stay in the lane of music, where else do you go? And so I'm just wondering, like, you've managed this balance to be this pop star, you're an entrepreneur, and now ministry. Now,
Hmm.
my question is, when did ministry come into focus for you when you were still being a musician and going out and wowing everyone on different continents?
Well, I was at the peak of my career when I became a Christian, which is unusual. Usually
Mm.
people become Christians when they're tanking, right? They're desperate, you know.
Phew.
Yeah, but I was actually tanking. I was tanking emotionally, but I was at the peak professionally.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
I became a Christian December '95. So it was actually before that big hit. It was
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I was not even peaking yet. Basically, I was peaking '96.
There you go.
But I was definitely massively going. It was like an explosive growth, and what happened was I became a Christian. I started really like reviewing everything about my life. I got a lot of mentorship and a lot of guidance, and it changed me so profoundly. And I'm sort of this. I'm a pretty radical guy in the sense that if I go all in, you know. And I was I was not shy about it. So I have like 3 magazine covers where I basically on the cover of the magazine say I'm a Christian. I have deep convictions about Christianity or something like that. Versions of that, like on the cover. And I got a lot of heat from the press and all kinds of people. You know, people were like, "No way, this guy," you know, because I had a reputation, like a very different reputation. Let's put it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people were like, "No way, this is like a phase." These artists, you know. So, but I stuck with it, you know. And but what happened when it comes to transitioning into other careers, and I hope that speaks to your audience, because sometimes you are in a career path and you get stuck there even though it's somebody else's dream, and I'll unpack what that means. You know, you maybe your parents wanted to do something, maybe your peers wanted to do something, maybe you're just having such success financially that even though you might feel a little bit misaligned or a lot misaligned, you're not going to switch away because you have this sort of reputation, the status to maintain, right? Or even a spending habit, you know, standard of living, so to say. Yeah. So, and I think most people, they end up getting sort of staying on a lane that's no longer theirs for way longer than they should. And we're just not honest with ourselves. We're just quietly miserable. And what I found is I have sort of one of my unfortunate perhaps gifts, and fortunate in other ways, is that I'm completely incapable of staying with something that no longer excites me. And I was on a train ride, and I was going on tour on a train ride, and I remember very distinctly when I had that thought that I'm going from city to city and entertaining thousands and thousands of people, and my crew is with me. I think I was traveling with like 20 people or something like that at the time.
Wow.
So I had an entourage, right? And I was sitting alone in the car, in the train car, and I remember thinking, is this all there is for me? And that thought was very intense, basically. And what it revealed is that I was grateful for the opportunities that I got. I was living a dream that most musicians actually never reach, statistically speaking. And yet, this is it is a dream life for somebody who all they want to do is do music their whole life.
Yeah.
But I realized I'm just not that guy. And I realized that there were some parts of me that were dormant. And, you know, I was traveling throughout that Eurasian sort of space, 15 different countries. But I was an international person. Like, I grew up all over the world, and I felt claustrophobic in that space. I was like, this is getting super boring, basically. I was doing only music, but I was also wanting to raise a family. And I knew that raising a family would clash with the lifestyle. Right.
There you go.
With the constant traveling, and to me that had become a huge priority because I come from 3 generations of broken homes. I also have an economics degree. I have a master's degree in economics. I speak 4 different languages. None of those things were being utilized in that space where I was at. So I was like, you know, it's sort of embarrassing to acknowledge this, but I'm sort of bored doing this. And I don't want to be bored for the next 20 years, basically. So that's sort of was the initial, you know, impetus. And I really wanted to do ministry because I felt that if I can entertain thousands of people and I don't change eternity for them in any way, shape, or form, maybe I can use that same ability to preach the gospel and actually change eternity for some people. And to me, that was at the time very valuable because my life had changed so dramatically that I wanted to be able to give that to other people, you know? So anyway, that's sort of a long answer, but those are the nuances of the transition.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey y'all, this is Val the Voice, and guess what? I became a member of the Morning Meetup. It's an amazing community of entrepreneurs who are absolutely crushing it. My coach, David Shands of the Social Proof Podcast, hosts a free weekly webinar called Six Figure Entrepreneurship, where he shares key strategies to help you achieve six figures and beyond as an entrepreneur. It's totally free to join, and you'll get access to the same phenomenal coaching I get every day in the morning meetup community. Click the link in the podcast description to find out more about the morning meetup and how you can level up your business. And now, back to the show. Yeah, and I think that people sometimes get pigeonholed and they figure they can't pivot because
That's
they
right. Yeah.
feel I'm known as this,
That's right.
whatever that is.
Exactly. And if you start something new, you're gonna start over. So you don't have the status, the recognition, even the respect, perhaps. And what if you fail, right? So I think most people do not make those hard decisions, even though in the long run they would have probably been much happier, more fulfilled, and maybe even more successful if they did make that jump.
Yeah. And I think ultimately your story is inspiring because you made the pivot, you turned.
Yeah.
And I think what's so remarkable is how all of the things that you've learned as a musician, as someone that's touring, I feel like you bring it all to your podcast headspace. You bring it to your writing, and definitely you brought it to your ministry. You met your wife, Deb. When did you guys meet, and how did you all meet?
We were in LA, and I was invited to a conference. It was called the AMS World Tour, and it was basically creatives, artists, athletes, Christian athletes from all over the world met in LA for this big conference. I was performing, I was speaking, and she was part of that ministry in Los Angeles, and she worked in MTV, VH1, so she has this creative background as well, right? So she's a theater major, etc. And she was one of the organizers, and she was asking me for my info because they were going to introduce me on stage. I was performing at the Pantages Theater, which was really fun, and it was like a legendary place. They used to do the Oscars there, right?
Oh, and, excuse me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, in Hollywood, it was fun. And so she was asking me for my info, and she was gonna walk away, and I was like, hey, so what do you do? So tell me about yourself. And that's sort of how it happened. And I instantly had a connection with her, honestly, instantly. And somebody had set me up on a blind date with a couple other ladies, and I canceled everything. And I'm like, I'm gonna pursue this one. I didn't have enough time, so I had to make a decision and press in. And that's what we
because when you're in, you're all in.
I'm all in, exactly. Yeah. And then I wrote to her because there was no Skype at the time. It was dial-up time, right? It was the 19th century still, the 20th century, from the last century. So I emailed her every day until she moved to Moscow.
Wow. So she left the States to come to you.
Did. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Wow. That's love. And I'm assuming you all got married afterwards.
We got married, yes, in Moscow. We had 1,800 people at our wedding.
What? Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people there.
Wow. And you know what? I'll get your thoughts on what's happening over there right now. And I kind of had to have someone kind of break things down about the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
Yeah.
Not going to get into it right now, but in my mind, I was just thinking how beautiful to have a wedding in Moscow where it's I can just imagine and see how beautiful it is. So
yeah.
Definitely. But the book,
yes,
the little book of Big Reasons to Love America, a love letter from an immigrant. I was going through this book and just loving, number one, I'm very visual. I love the photos, I love the colors. And your book features a lot of powerful quotes, including one from one of my favorite orators, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., about the church being the consciousness of the state. How do you see yourself as serving as a conscious with your family, your ministry, and the broader community?
I think that I love that quote very much because I think
Hmm.
what
That's
it
why it's in the
does it
book.
because it's because there's two camps essentially, right, in America, and
Hmm. Hmm.
one is really more about, that the Christian, this is a Christian nation,
Hmm.
all of that stuff, right? Which is it was never a Christian nation actually,
Ah.
Now it was never founded as a Christian nation. Now there's a difference between it being founded as a Christian nation and the cultural DNA being very, very Christian. I think there's a difference there because and then the other side argues separation of church and state, which is definitely there from the original, from the get-go, right? And I
Right.
think both can be reconciled by this quote.
Ah.
The this the idea that this is a this is a nation that has been built on Christian principles, 100% true.
Hmm.
Cultural
Hmm.
DNA, I call it, right? Collective consciousness.
There you go.
100% true. And if it wasn't for that DNA, if it wasn't for that consciousness collectively, this cultural texture, America would not be America. It's just a very different country. On the other hand, it is a country that was founded on the separation of church and state. And the reason for that is because the founders didn't want one group, one religious group, to take hold of the political power and lord it
Hmm.
over other religious groups.
Right.
That was the motivation, right? So it was never meant. It was never meant to be governed by a theological elite, so to say. You know.
Okay.
So I think when Martin Luther King, what he says, I think it reconciles both sides of the argument, where it says, yes, but the church, the collective of
Hmm.
Christians of all kinds, they need to speak as the consciousness of the state. They need to speak truth to power, which is exactly what MLK did.
Yeah.
And so I think it's absolutely necessary and important for Christians to speak the truths of Scripture, the principles of the governing laws of the universe to the political powers, right?
Yeah.
And the political powers should listen to that, and if they listen to that, they will guide the country into more prosperity, more flourishing, more peace. So that's sort of my
Mhm.
contention on that issue.
Oh my gosh. There's just so much. And I think that our community with Interludes would just love to know more and more about what you do, where they can find you, and how they can get their hands on the little book.
On the little book.
If people want to find out more about your ministry and your to book you either even for speaking or to
Yeah.
be and learn more about Headspace, where would they go?
So for the book, you just go on Amazon and plug in my name, Christian Ray Flores, or if you don't remember the title, Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. Everybody's like, it's a mouthful, but it works. But so you can look it up in a heartbeat. You'll find it. If you feel like, hey, I really want to get more inspiration on a regular basis, go to my Substack newsletter. It's christianrayflores.com. It's my newsletter. I drop 2 posts a week. One is free. The other one's for those generous souls who want to support our work and our subscribers for
Mhm.
like $11 a month. And that's a special post on Wednesday mornings rather. And
Mhm.
then look, if you want to book me, you can just go to exponential.life without the E, starts with an X. And I'm speaking at churches, I'm speaking at conferences now. So I'm sort of beginning to do more speaking this year because I'm letting go of a couple of endeavors that were stretching me a little bit too thin. So I have a little bit more space this year and going forward. And that same website, Exponential.life, is the coaching website. So you can see the program, the kind of people we help, and listen to some testimonials and see if it's a good fit for you.
Excellent. Excellent. Christian Ray Flores, it has been an honor to have you here with the Interludes Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on today.
Val, thank you. It's good to speak to someone who has been a true professional for decades and decades. You've told me a little bit about your origin story as well, and it's fun to reminisce about the good old days when you could edit with analog tape. That's OG, man. That's fantastic stuff.
Telling my age, but it's okay. I like it.
Embrace it, Val. Embrace it.
I'm embracing it all. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is the Interludes Podcast. Having Christian Ray Flores on the Interludes Podcast has truly been an enlightening experience. We're all about being aspirational, informational, and motivational here, and Christian exemplifies these qualities brilliantly. From his days as a global pop star to mastering 4 languages, Christian's journey is a testament to the power of transformation and finding one's true calling. It's incredible to see how he's pivoted from feeling unfulfilled in his music career to embracing his roles as a family man and a man of faith. Through his podcast, Headspace, and his heartfelt book, A Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, a love letter from an immigrant, Christian continues to share his message and inspire others. If you're captivated by his story and want to dive deeper, I highly recommend following Headspace and picking up his book. It's a poignant reflection of the values that make America truly great, making it a must-read for 2025. Thanks for joining us, and keep tuning in for more inspiring stories like this one. Until next time, I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is the Interludes Podcast. The Interludes Podcast.
Original concept by Valerie Johnson.
Sports segments for Talk on Tuesdays, produced by Coach Tony Thompson.
Original intro and outro music produced by Kendall Nesbitt.
The Interludes Podcast, a Pure Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by our new website, purelighthousemedia.com, home to the book, A DJ Saved My Life, where the ABCs of podcasting and the personal memoir come together perfectly. If you are interested in starting your podcast, schedule time with me or support the platform by buying merch, which also includes the book, by visiting purelighthousemedia.com today.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel or join Interludes Facebook group, visit the website linktree/Pure Light Media. That's linktr.ee/Pure Light Media.